I'm Gauss. I work for Cisco PCERT. Just in case that somebody doesn't know PCERT, we are the bunch of guys who are handling vulnerability for Cisco, all Cisco stuff. So I will not talk about Cisco vulnerabilities. Well, there are some people who are talking about it today and yesterday and probably tomorrow and day after, so that is covered. I would like to talk about something else. I would like to tell you a story about cyberspace. And in order to make things slightly more interesting or dynamic, I do have a few copies of my book, which was published in December last year, which I'm giving away for few people. I think that I have 4 copies for the people who would have the more comments or the more questions, whichever come first. And before anybody asks, questions like, are you done yet and can you go home? They do not count, okay? So, good. Cyberspace. What's cyberspace? So, well, actually, the idea for this presentation came to me while I was reading a paper commissioned for OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So the author was talking about the usual stuff, cyberspace, cybersecurity, cyber technology, this and that. And while reading that paper, I was okay, everything was fine, everything was okay. Up until one point where I said, oh, wait, I mean, this doesn't sound right. Because it was obvious to me that the author's notion of cyberspace and mine, they differ. Something is different. So I just wondered, okay, so how this guy thinks about cyberspace? So I just flipped through the paper, trying to find definition of a cyberspace, only to find a note that says, for this report, we have not defined cyberspace on purpose. Okay, well, fair enough. So then I thought, well, if there is a difference between that author and myself, what about other people? So there might be a similar situation. And maybe, well, there are some differences how we perceive what this thing is. Then again, I mean, we do know what it is because we do have a description. And this is the description, the one that says, what is cyberspace? Well, it says it is a consensual hallucination of billion operators. It's data representation, neon lights, city lights receding. It sounds cool, sounds nice. But as it happens, it's probably not the most practical definition that we can use in our daily life. Having said that, very often my boss is hallucinating that I'm actually doing some work while I'm hallucinating to being paid for what I'm doing. So maybe there is something in this definition, description after all. But nonetheless, let me ask you a question. What do you think is a cyberspace? What is cyberspace for you, sir? How would you describe, tell me, or what belongs there?
From a security point of view, it's a mess.
Okay, it's a mess. Sounds fair. Cyberspace is a mess. Any other takers? Yes, sir.
It's an environment where multiple actors who are unknown to each other can communicate without necessarily any set of borders there, which cannot truly be defined with any given set of limitations that someone will always be breaking down.
Okay, well, I will just try to paraphrase it, and it was rather long. So I would say that it is some kind of virtual environment where actors unknown to each other can communicate and do some interaction. Does it? Oh, okay, well, thank you. Thank you for being kind. Any other takers? Any other ideas? No? Okay, well, fair enough. So we will come back to these later on during the presentation and see how it is. But first, let us ask one question. While people have this need to give names to everything, so while people tend to give names to things and themselves, after all. So, for example, in old Japan, it was customary for people to change their names throughout their lives. So let's say that somebody was born, and then parents, they gave him a nice Japanese name, Joe. So he was being Joe for a while, and then at some point in time, Joe decides and says, well, I don't really feel like a Joe anymore. I feel like Hokusai, so I would like to be called Hokusai. And so be it. So from that point on, he was known as a Hokusai. Up until, I don't know, again, late in his life, he would say, no, I really feel like Musashi now. And that was perfectly fine. I do not know if they still have that habit in Japan to change their name throughout the life. But if memory serves me, for example, in Korea, when you apply for the passport, you are given an option to choose a Western name. So I have a friend, one guy, who is called Arnold. He is not really called Arnold. But that is what is written in his passport, and that is what he chose for himself. And furthermore, there are many folk tales and stories which are saying that knowing somebody's name, somebody's real, true name, means basically knowing the essence of that person. And some would go even further and say, if you know somebody's name, but real name, you can even control that person. So from that standpoint, knowing a real name is something magical. Then on the other hand, there is more cynical version of it, which would say, well, yeah, I mean, brain, it is a wonderful thing, and it can do wonders, but as it happens, it is not that capable in processing information as we would like to think it is. So in order to lighten that processing load, what we do, instead of thinking when I say tree, for example, we don't think about millions and millions of different trees and how they relate and their colors, size, and everything else. No, we just have a handy label that says tree. And then we think in the terms of that label, instead of all these millions and millions of individual trees. So I don't really know which theory is correct. Is the name magical or not? Or is it just, well, the way how we process things? But nonetheless, we have it, and we have a name over cyberspace. So what we will go in this presentation, quickly, why I'm focusing on cyberspace, number one. Then how I build ontology of the cyberspace, what can we learn from it, and a few concluding remarks. So pretty straightforward and simple. Number one, why cyberspace? Well, it is root of everything cyber. So you have cyber security, cyber terrorism, cyber crime, cyber sandwiches, cyber cafe, whatever you want. Everything is cyber. And obviously, everything is either being done through the cyberspace with help of cyberspace or in some relation to cyberspace. So if we know what cyberspace is, that will help us to relate what those other cyber things are. And that is the reason why I'm focusing on a cyberspace. But there are more reasons why I'm doing that. The next one, well, it's kind of important. I mean, at the end of the day, look at us. Our livelihood depends on a cyberspace because we are doing things which are either related to a cyberspace or we are inside it or whatever it is. We do have a fun in it. I don't know, we play games, we play pranks, or we just do hacking. Somebody calls that fun. We also use it to, I don't know, keep in touch with our friends, families. All is that done through a cyberspace. But also, we have our dear politicians who are passing some legislations around cyberspace. And they will tell us what we are allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do. So if they get it wrong, they will make our life pretty hard, not to say miserable. Well, it depends on a case. So one of the main purposes of this talk is actually to make you aware and make this your task, to talk to your politicians and help them to at least come out with some good workable definition of what cyberspace is. Because at the end of the day, it is in your interest. It will make your life easier at the end of the day. If not easier, well, I mean, I would like to say to help them make a sensible laws, but that is kind of contradiction, but at least something that you can live with. That would be a great start. So for all these reasons, cyberspace is important. Okay, so who is using the term cyberspace? Obviously, I do, but right now, I don't know how many of you think about cyberspace first thing in the morning when you wake up and say, oh, I'll just go and do something in cyberspace. Well, I'm not that guy. I mean, cyberspace is not my first thought, not the second, and God knows which one is. So this is a product of very quick, dirty, and unscientific survey, just trying to find who is using that term, not really concerned why. And as you can see, I was using Google, and then just trying to constrain query on different domains, and then, let's say, if we see who in gov domains is using this term, then we would say, okay, government guys, they're using it, as it says, 1.5 million hits for governments around the world. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Honestly speaking, I was expecting a little bit more hits, just because cyberspace sounds like a sexy term, and politicians, they like those catchphrases and buzzwords, and given that now we have election season in the US and in France, so yeah, well, they're probably using it. But then again, I do not know this 1.5 million, what percentage is that of overall web pages that they have? Well, whatever it is, that's the number. Then I looked at academia. Academia says, oh, 7.5 million. So obviously, they're using it a lot. Which is okay. I mean, these guys, basically, they're paid to do and think about crazy stuff. And beside that, obviously, they have a bunch of students, so professor would say, go and write homework on a cyberspace, and then suddenly you have 50, 60 papers on a cyberspace, whatever it is. So, okay, they are using it a lot. But then, here comes surprise. Commercials. 67.5 million. Okay, and before you ask, I don't know why. However, when I typed just cyberspace without site modified in a Google, I was given 44 million hits. Here, I have 67 million hits. So obviously my Google foo is zero, it doesn't exist, and I have no clue how to explain this discrepancy. So if somebody knows, please tell me later. Why is that? You know?
Google will generally try to filter out duplicates unless you specifically do the site heading. So like www and the site itself.com will control the different headings.
Okay, I see. Well, sir, you definitely deserve the book. Thank you for the help. Okay, so now we know why that happens, because the way how Google handles duplicates. Amazon, 13.5 thousand, which is low number. But okay, so we see commercials. At first I was surprised about this number for commercials. Then again, how many market droids you know when you tell them a buzzword, they will just keep using it over and over and over and beat it to death and then some more. And I mean, so probably shouldn't be surprised, but well, I was. Organizations, it says 20.5 million, and international organizations, again, we have 27.5 thousand. So, well, numbers are as they are. Maybe, well, maybe, definitely those absolute numbers are not really important, but at least you can get a feeling who is using it. And as it happens, market droids a lot, and then followed by academia. Okay, so what I have done in order to make, well, to try to make ontology of cyberspace. So I try to locate official definitions of the cyberspace. For purposes of this presentation, official means as given by a national state government or international standard setting body. So why these guys? Well, it is because these guys, when they say something, they tend to influence a large number of people and organizations. So that seems kind of important. So I just took these guys. Sorry. I have a problem with my throat, so I apologize for any inconvenience. Once I got these definitions, I would extract keywords out of them and then sort them into different categories and then build ontology. Approach is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, so there is no big magic in it. As you can imagine, there are some problems with this approach. Well, the first one being, how do you spell that thing? I mean, is it a cyberspace, one word, cyberspace, two words, cybers hyphen space? Or what I learned, I think it was on Tuesday, India, for example, they have cyber domain. They don't have a cyberspace. So I don't know how to spell it. No, okay, no surprise, I'm not native English speaker. Looking at the Oxford English Dictionary, which should be the reference for the English, they said it is one word. But it doesn't prevent other people from using all those other stuff. And obviously then things went downhill from this point on. So number one, I don't know how to spell it. But hey, I'm not the only one, so it seems. The next problem with my approach is my not knowing foreign languages. So if there is a document written in a native language, and it says cyberspace is that, but just in native language, I wouldn't know what it means. Unfortunately, I speak only one foreign language, and that's all. So the next problem is that obviously I was using Google for my search and research, among other things. If it is not indexed, if it is not on the web, I will not be able to find a document. So it is also possible that some governments, they do have definition, but it is just not publicly available on the web. Okay, well, fair enough. There are two other issues with this approach. So I told you the way how I was doing it is to find definitions and then extract keywords. So that is kind of subjective. Obviously, if you would be repeating this process, you might pick slightly different keywords. Having said that, I do believe that the end result would be pretty much the same. So, oh yes, and the last item is, obviously, I'm using definitions which are found right now to extract keywords out. If there would be more definitions, I would probably, well, there is possibility to locate more keywords, so the overall ontology would be larger, and that might change the situation. Again, nothing wrong with this approach. These are just limitations, and, well, things are as they are. So, question for you. What do you think how many definitions I managed to find? Who says 0? Any bidders 0? No? Okay. What about, I don't know, 20? Yeah, 20 odds, okay. 30? Who is giving 30? 30. We have a 30 at the first row. 30 at the fourth row. 40. Anybody gives 40? No 40. Okay. Going once, going twice. No, sir, you're just scratching your head. Okay. Well, as it happens, 11. That is what I have found. Mind you, there might be more, I just haven't found them. But these are ones that I managed to find. 11. First one being Oxford Dictionary, again, just because it is the reference for English language. Then for several governments, then European Union, which is kind of federal government, sort of, and 2 international standard setting bodies, ISO and ITU. So these are the things that I have managed to find.
Nothing on Wikipedia?
Well, yes, but you know, it's not national government yet. And also not on Facebook. Mind you, for Australia and Netherlands, I was unable to find a definition of cyberspace itself. What I managed to find was definition of cybersecurity. So I assumed, rightly or wrongly, that if you say cybersecurity, that secures cyberspace. So whatever you are securing, that is cyberspace. Again, I am painfully aware that that is most probably incorrect, but that is the closest that I managed to came for these 2 countries. So bear that in mind. And boy, oh boy, I mean, these definitions, they look pretty fancy. I will not bore you with all of them. I will just give you a taste of a few of them. This one being the first. If you would like to read them all, they're all in a paper which is attached to the presentation, so you can do it later on at your leisure. EU says, a word invented by William Gibson. Fair enough, I give them that much. And then it describes a virtual space in which the electronic data of worldwide PCs circulate. So, all you guys with Macs, you're not part of cyberspace. All of you guys with tablets, mobile phones, you are not part of cyberspace, as far as EU is concerned. Having said that, this definition is taken from EU glossary, which is archived. So I was looking hard. I was unable to find when this definition was made. So obviously it was after William wrote the book. I was also unable to find when these definitions, well, when the glossary itself was archived. But what I have found is that there are multiple conferences, meetings, tutorials, symposia, whatever, where people are proposing new definitions to EU. The last one that I'm aware of happened just a few months ago. And people are saying, well, we think that definition should be this. And then the EU was responding, well, thank you for your proposal. However, we think that you haven't done something else or considered something else. So to the best of my knowledge, EU is either using this one or nothing at all. Because it appears that, well, there is no official definition yet. Well, at least not a new one. Okay, here's the next one. Anybody from UK here? No? Oh, thank you, sir. Well, this is UK definition. This is how UK defines what a cyberspace is. And it goes. It says, interactive domain, made up digital networks, includes the internet, but also other information systems that support our businesses, infrastructure, and services. Okay, well, fair enough. Anybody remember modems, you know, those small boxes you plug into phones? Yeah, well, if you still happen to use them, whatever goes through these lines is not part of cyberspace. It's not the digital stuff, according to UK. Or one day when we will have all those wonderful quantum computers and quantum networks, it won't be a part of cyberspace either, according to the current definition. I mean, this is last year's definition. The previous one was from 2009, so they'll probably change it. And there is one more thing. So those computers and systems, they must support our business. So if by any chance it supports your business, not part of cyberspace, according to UK. So I don't really know if they meant our like all the people and everybody else, or if that our means UK. But whatever it is, we will have to take it with UK guys and see what that our exactly means. It is unknown to me. Okay, the last one. Germany. There should be a few people from Germany here, I guess, yes. Gentleman in the first row. Okay, well, they say it's a virtual space. What they say, IT system linked in data level on a global scale, basis is internet, can be expanded by additional network. IT system in an isolated virtual space are not part of cyberspace. So, I have an interesting reading of this last sentence, and it says isolated IT systems. So if I take my computer, unplug the network, shut down wireless, that would be isolated system. So therefore, it's not part of cyberspace anymore. But what if I have a virtual machines running on it, and those virtual machines, they're talking to each other, so they are connected to each other. Are they then part of cyberspace? Do they form a cyberspace by itself? While my machine is not there? I mean, it is possible that I'm misreading. Yes, sir?
I wonder, how do they define isolated space? Because there are physically separated networks that literally span the globe.
Yeah, well, again, good question. And also, I mean, we are talking about physical devices in virtual space. How I can fit that, I'm also not quite certain. But again, it is possible that I am just reading it wrongly. So, well, whatever it is. Okay, I will stop boring you with those definitions. These are the ones that I have found, as I said. What is also telling is what I haven't found. Here are some of the places where I have looked, but I haven't found. Okay, so first of all, if I haven't found doesn't mean that there is none. All it means is just I haven't found it, period. I have asked some people from different countries to help me to locate definitions, hoping that, okay, so if you live there and you're a native speaker, so you know things better, you will be able to find the document and at least tell me, well, we do have a one and here it is. I can't read it, but fine, it's still there. But mostly they came out empty-handed. Apart from interesting, for example, China and Japan. They came back to me and said, well, you know, we don't have an official definition. We have multiple definitions. So if you ask, let's say, Ministry of Science, they would say, cyberspace is like this. And then you ask Ministry of Finance, and they say, cyberspace is like this. Ministry of Defense, oh, it's like that. So they do have different definitions. I don't know how much they differ between them, but they don't have a single one. I haven't included those definitions into this paper, so that is probably, I don't know, potential to extend the research for some better time. And it was also interesting, the answer I received from India, and again, I just got it this week earlier. The person says that according to India IT Act, they have cyber domain, they don't have a cyberspace, but inside that act, it is described what cyber domain covers, which is basically India and can be extended. But it doesn't really say what it is, just what it covers, which is kind of interesting approach. Yes, sir?
It seems to me that the US, which can be maybe seen as the origin of cyberspace, as some of us noted, wasn't included in your first list, and it's not included in this list either.
Oh, sorry, yes, US is there. I apologize. So, okay, thank you for showing mistake on a slide. Yes, US is here.
They have a definition?
They do, US does, yes. It is defined in presidential directive number blah blah by Clinton, so it is there. Yes, they do have it. The one thing that you may say, for example, is for United Nations, given that ITU belongs to UN, so you may say, well, UN should adopt whatever ITUT says. You probably might be right, but as it happens, when I was going to the website, I wasn't really finding anything. The only document that I managed to find was one from UNESCO, which basically says cyberspace equal internet. But it was more like a footnote, so I didn't really took it as a real proper definition. Well, so what is the process? The process, as I said, it was quite simple. Take definitions, get the keywords out, sort them according to similarities, and then just to make things even more easy and manageable, I collected these keywords and put them into 3 different buckets. Quite simple. Here is a worked out example on New Zealand. New Zealand says that it's global network, interdependent IT technology, infrastructure, telco networks, computer processing system in which online communication takes place. That is what they say. The keywords that I have highlighted are the following. So we do have stuff like global network, interdependent IT, telco network, computer processing, online communication. So as I said, if you would be doing, you might locate different keywords, maybe not, maybe yes, but again, I do believe that at the end of the day, we will end up with the similar results. These keywords, we can tentatively put them into 4 different categories. And we can say, the first one being a network stuff, so everything that is network related, all those keywords you put into this category. Interdependency, again, it seems to be a prominent property, so you put it into separate category, IT category by itself, and communication, again, the same thing. So, and as I said, this was done for all definitions that I have found. Keyword out first, and then sort them this way. So what I ended up with is, as it happens, 11 different categories. So all keywords that I have managed to extract out of all definitions, I was able to put them into these 11 categories. So you have ICT, hardware, what's the information, activities, virtual internet network, and communication. Okay, well, and as I said, on top of these, I put these different categories into 3 buckets. The first bucket being tangible stuff. Obviously, number 1 and 2, ICT and hardware. Whatever you can kick that is tangible goes there. The next bucket would be intangible stuff. So obviously, you would have information, activities, social human aspect, virtual. That goes into that bucket. And the last bucket is networking stuff. Internet, network, communication, interdependencies. And that's all. This is the result. So this table is showing you for a particular country what categories I managed to identify in their definitions. And as you can see, there is a US, because obviously we do have definition for the cyberspace from US. So what we can see from this, I mean, some of the definitions, they seem to be relatively simple in a sense that they use only a few categories, like Oxford Dictionary. It basically says it's a virtual stuff, internet is inside, and communication is prominent. Fair enough. Some others, like UK and US, they tick almost all the boxes. Almost anything is inside. What I'm not saying that one definition is better than the other. I'm not either saying that one is wrong, one is right. They probably are all right, or they are maybe all wrong. I don't know. But this is how a number of really intelligent and smart people, how they think about what cyberspace is and how they represent it. So why this is important? I mean, look at this. You have just ticks here and there, and mind you, for Australia and Netherlands, these are derived definitions from cybersecurity. They are not original cybersecurity definitions. So everything is fine while we are doing things for ourselves. So let's say UK. I like picking on these guys since I live there. So if we say that UK would define cyberspace, say, I don't know, cyberspace is green with yellow polka dots this size. It's perfectly okay. Nothing wrong with that. Because we can make whatever laws we want within our country and we can do magic with it. It's perfectly fine. So where the problem might occur is that one day, if you would have a UK on one side, would like to sit with France and make some laws about, I don't know, trans cyber stuff, how to do stuff across the border. And then the UK would say, oh yeah, everything is okay, we can do the stuff as long as the dots are this size. And then the France would look and say, come on man, what are you talking about? Everybody knows cyberspace is stripy, stripes, not dots. And then we will have disconnect, because one guy is saying one thing, another guy is saying the other thing. And this is something that us here, we need to help those politician guys at least to make definitions that look similar. And I'm too old to be naive to believe that there will be a single definition. That would never happen. But at least close enough so that when they sit together and when they talk, that they talk approximately about similar things. Okay, so at the beginning, I asked, what do you think about cyberspace and what it is for you? So there was the notion that it is some virtual environment where people who are unknown to each other manage to communicate through the cyberspace and do the stuff. Well, as you can see, virtual is here, it is present in some definitions, social human aspects which would encompass those interactions between people. It is also present in some definitions, but not all of them. So yes, people are thinking about all sorts of stuff and they're doing it. So what can we learn from this? Well, the first thing that we can learn is that cyberspace is pretty different place, depends from where you look at it. For some people it looks like this, for some people look like that. It is virtual as much as it is physical. So without physical aspects, it seems that there is no cyberspace. It can't be yet. Maybe one day we will be able to make, I don't know, computers out of nothing and then do everything virtual. But for the time being, we need to have some hardware present. Then it also says that networks are present in many definitions, but interactions not in all of them. So it seems that interaction that is going inside may not be, or at least that is a common wisdom currently among these people, that may not be part of cyberspace, or at least needed for it. And contrary to some belief, cyberspace is not internet. So yes, some people who still believe in that, they will be well disappointed because it isn't. So let's say that we are in a position to talk to our people, politician people who are making all those nice laws. So how can we help them to either define a new definition if we don't have one, or if we want to help them to modify existing one? Because, well, as I said, UK, it seems that every few years that they're making a new one. So what are the things that we might consider when just working on a new definition? So first of all, there should be some aspects of physical world. Again, at the moment, physical stuff definitely belongs to a cyberspace. On intangible sides, so it is virtual stuff, activities, applications, all that seems to be important. Human benefit, on the other hand, and human interaction doesn't really seem to be important for a cyberspace, or at least the current thinking is right now. So as long as we have a, I don't know, sensor somewhere who is sending temperature reading to a computer over there, and the computer is doing some calculation, that is fine. Are we cold or hot? Who cares? It doesn't really matter. Well, we care, but for the cyberspace, no, it doesn't really matter. Lastly, from network perspective, communication is the key. So there must be some kind of communication involved in a cyberspace. Networks, well, they're good, they're useful for spreading cyberspace around, but they are not really necessary, as long as there is a way for whatever it's inside to communicate. That seems to be enough. Which brings us to conclusion. Okay, so cyberspace, it is a very, very new thing, very, very new phenomenon. And there are two ways how we can look at it. The one way would be as it was on paintings of Mount Fuji from Hokusawa. It says that we all are looking one and only the same thing, Mount Fuji. Depending on where you are, you will see different sides of it, different aspects of it. But you are still looking at the one thing. Or there is another interpretation that says it is like a movie, Rashomon. The only thing that we know is samurai is dead. How he died, what happens, where is the sword, who killed him, we have no idea whatsoever. So, I don't know where we are. I mean, do we really know deep somewhere inside us what cyberspace really is, and we just happen to describe it differently every time we talk to somebody? Or do we really don't know what it is? No, my guess is probably we don't really know, but hey, we are trying. Hopefully we will be better. But nonetheless, this state of affairs doesn't prevent our politicians to pass the laws about it. And let me give you one more example. So if you remember earlier, I showed you the definition from Germany. It says that isolated IT system is not part of cyberspace. Okay. On the other hand, take ITOT. They have a definition which goes to great pains and length to say that voice over IP is part of cyberspace and next generation network and yada, yada, yada. But it also, they say, if you have a computer that can exchange information with other systems, no matter how, floppy disks, tapes, CD-ROMs, any kind of ways to exchange information, that computer is part of cyberspace. Not only that, building, housing computer is part of cyberspace. So next time you walk into a data center, you actually walked into a cyberspace. Yeah, hooray! You walked into something virtual, which is, I mean, part of it is at least virtual. So you see, we are dealing with differences which are not small occasionally. They are pretty fundamental. The one says isolated nothing, the other say, oh yeah, not only that, but even the building around. So we definitely need to help these guys. And if we cannot help these guys, well, they sometimes cannot be helped, really. What we should try to do is that next time when we sit together and say, okay, let's talk about, I don't know, cybercrime, then let it be the first question, okay, can you please tell me what is cybercrime for you? And then when you tell me, then I'll tell you, okay, and I think cybercrime is this for me. So at least we will have understanding where we are to each other. And then we can move from that point on. And then say, yeah, okay, fine, we can build the things. And whenever we have opportunity, just help our politicians to build some definitions that are similar, like everything else. And I gave you pointers what you might want to include into these definitions. Okay, with that, I will conclude my presentation. As I said, I was trying to be brief. I still have to show you obligatory slide about filling your feedback forms and something that will give completely new spin on cable sniffing. And mind you, obviously, this cable is not part of cyberspace because it is a power cable, so it's analog as far as UK is concerned. Okay, any questions, gentlemen? No questions? Okay, I managed to bore you to death. Well, in that case, thank you very much and have a good evening.